Hey, exercise outside, man. So yesterday I was doing my leg workout, and at least part of my leg workout that you see here was squats, like low slow squats, I mean, and Nordic curls. I did my other part of the workout, which was 200 lunges on the track in the morning. Now, I exercise outside almost every single day. I exercise about 5 or 6 days a week, and I exercise every day, almost every time. Now, part of that is because I don't currently have a gym membership. When I was on my previous 9 to 5 job, a gym membership came, or gym access rather, came with that. And so I did take advantage of that. But even then, a lot of times I would leave the gym for part of my workout and go outside. Now, why would I do that whenever there's so much equipment, very good equipment available inside the gym? Well, I do like gym equipment and whatnot, but part of the reason is because I've purposefully focused for the past decade or more on bodyweight exercise, calisthenics and whatnot, stuff that only requires my body or at most some sort of bar or something like that. Oh, excuse me. But also because of the added benefit of being outside. Now, one thing I am convinced of is that we humans we forget that we are a part of this whole thing here, this, the natural world or whatever. Like, we're a part of all of this, the different kind of we come from dirt, just like everything else, that God created. So it's important for us to remember that. And I think we forget it because we are so technologically advanced, and then even there's also like a Western kind of mindset aspect to it, that we just kind of like tend to separate ourselves from the natural world. But I say that to say that we're a lot of times nervous to be outside. We're a lot of times nervous to kind of be around other life and fresh air and whatnot. If it's a little bit cool outside, we're a little nervous about that. Or if it's raining, we're nervous about that. Even if it's not really raining that hard. And I think that is to our detriment, in part because it makes us less resilient. We feel like we can't really take a little cold, even though our bodies actually can deal with that fine if you allow your body to accustom to it. Um, but we feel like we can't really tolerate a little cold, can't tolerate a little wet, and we're less resilient. We're less flexible in our bodies because of that. Like, literally, we become less able to tolerate weather things like heat and cold because we don't expose ourselves to them. True story. I worked with this guy, a Vietnamese guy, several years ago, and he explained to me that when he came over from Vietnam to the United States, he was experiencing a lot of nosebleeds at first because he was not used to central air. He wasn't used to it. Like, literally, I guess the air was so dry that it was giving him nosebleeds because, in Vietnam they didn't use air conditioning. So think about it, we can't imagine that. But they didn't use air conditioning, so they were kind of more so accustomed to, and it's very humid over there, I guess, like it is here, perhaps even more so there. I don't know, but he was used to that. But coming over to this kind of environment was hard for his body to take. So I'm sure now he's a lot more used to how it is over here. But I wonder if that's to his detriment. But literally, not exposing ourselves to the outdoors can have a variety of negative impacts on health. And this is the reason why I like to exercise outside a lot. Now, the most frequently mentioned reason that we should go outside, one of the things I mention a lot, is because of sunlight and vitamin D. We've been conditioned a lot to avoid the sun, especially those of us who are lighter skinned. Um, because of the potential for skin cancer and stuff like that. However, And I wish I had, the source for the information and whatnot. But I've heard that the reason why that is an issue in this day and age is because of, at least in part, our diets. That our unhealthy diets actually make us more vulnerable to the harmful effects of the sun. And if our diets were more clean, then we would be more resilient against the harmful effects of the sun and more so able to benefit from the vitamin D that results from exposure to the sun on the skin. Okay. Vitamin D, like our main source of vitamin D is the sun. And if you're darker skin, if you're black, or somebody else who has more pigment in your skin, you need more sun exposure to get adequate vitamin D than somebody who's white or lighter skinned or whatever. But given that your diet is overall healthy and whatnot, you really need sun exposure, and especially if you're darker skinned, you need sun exposure to get adequate vitamin D. And vitamin D is so important for the immune system. It's so important for um, your cells to do the way they're supposed to do as far as like growing and regenerating and all that kind of stuff. So it's very important. The other thing is the fresh air. So, inside, there are a variety of sources of toxins, um, from our carpet, from, stuff like this, I'm sure, from the EMF from our routers and things like that, from paint and carpet, and the list goes on and on and on and on. We like our environments, and they definitely are beneficial to us for sure. But they're made with a lot of things that it's not really good for us to always be inside in inhaling. I forget to mention the cleaners. So if you use harsh, unnatural cleaners and whatnot, um, these things aren't healthy to ingest all the time. So you need to be outside, especially hopefully you have somewhere that's not necessarily deep in the city around all the pollution of cars and automobiles and stuff like that. But like it's important. That's why I'm exercising here outside. Thankfully, I live in a place that has a whole lot of trees and vegetation, a little bit away from all the traffic of the city and whatnot. And the weather, by the way, yesterday was wonderful. You can hear the birds chirping. It was a breeze. It was about 70 degrees. It was perfect, y'all. I'm telling you, it was perfect. Um, but yeah, and so people have also talked about stuff like grounding. I don't really know a lot about that, but in case you haven't heard of grounding, that's this whole thing about apparently if your skin, your bare feet come in contact with um the dirt, the ground, it helps you to balance out as far as like the electrons and stuff that are on your body with the earth and whatnot. So, I don't know much about grounding. It's not something I've researched. I know about grounding in the electrical engineering sense because that's my background, but I don't know about grounding from the standpoint of like the human. But you do your own research on that. But even also just being outside in and of itself is calming. It's something about being outside in a natural environment. Even when I'm inside, if I don't have the windows open so I can see outside, I feel a little tense. And so I have to every morning when I get up, I have to open the windows. Otherwise, I feel kind of closed in and whatnot. So getting outside in the natural environment and whatnot is is beneficial in more ways than one. And I strongly encourage you to take your workouts outside at least sometimes. Don't avoid outside because you have to remember, we're the only beings that stay inside most of our lives or whatever. But you see everything else living is outside. So we need to kind of take some cues from that. Don't neglect being outside. It's like it's a part of like who you are as a living being. Get some work, get some exercise work outside, y'all. Okay, don't stay inside.